The next one is the hee-haw. It's kind of like a donkey one, but a laughing donkey, I suppose. Hey everybody, Chelsea Melcher here. Today I am going to share with you some of my favorite warm-ups. So before we go any further, I do not own these warm-ups. I did not create these warm-ups. These warm-ups have been passed on to me through various teachers and coaches and wonderful people that I have worked with and learned from in my life. So I don't own any of these, but I love them. I love these warm-ups, and these are just a few of the ones that I use, but they're the most popular ones that I use because there's certain things that I love about them. And they probably would be helpful for a choral program as well, but I will say that I use these with my private voice lesson students. So moving forward, the very first one that I really like to do is do some sort of fricative with certain consonants, whether they're voiced or unvoiced. So you have the V, like the V, and I like to do a third on that one, or some of the unvoiced, you could have the F, like, or the TH, or the, another voiced one is a Z. So whichever one seems to work the best for you, but I like doing a fricative and then doing a third or a fifth, or really anything, because it's really great using these, because it kind of constricts the vocal tract but without completely closing it. And so one thing is the and going up, and you'll find that the higher that you go, of course it's harder, and then a lot of times the students will think that they're doing the V right and that they're not, because they'll be like where it's not even really connected with the voice or the body, instead of like the coming from a different place. So that's one of the things that I love to do. And then also the thing about that is keeping the airflow steady, because sometimes you'll hear in people's sounds that all of a sudden the airflow will go really fast to go up to the higher one, and then to go back down, all of a sudden they stop releasing the air. So that's one thing that you'll hear. You'll hear, or no, that kind of thing. Hear the disconnection at the end, or vice versa, where they disconnect going up to the top one. So that's really helpful for me to just feel like the airflow is going and trying to keep it as steady as possible, and then connecting it with the voice. And so that one seems really simple, but I will tell you this, it's actually really, really hard. It's taken me a long time to feel like I've gotten really that under my belt, and especially with my students still are working on it, because it's very difficult. They think that they're doing it correctly, and it's tricky in that way. So I'll give that disclaimer for that one. One of my other favorites is the ooh one. This one is really, it's about keeping everything flowing, keeping everything light, not bringing a whole lot of like heft into the sound. And it helps, especially in the female voice, it helps really access the top, woo, and just kind of going up and down, and not, it's very similar to a siren, but it's actually pitched. And this also, I like to do this with the male voices that I work with, and when they're working in their falsettos. And so it's woo, 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 woo. And it's really great because, especially once you get to the top, there's a point where you might hear the student, they'll start to kind of cap out, and then they can't really access the whole like woo going way up into there. And so this is one that I really work with to help people discover more of their high notes and really their whistle tone as well. The next one is my BDBDB that I love so much. And this one is, I love the E vowel, especially for myself, because I find it easiest to have the most resonance on an E vowel, because a lot of times when you hear people sing from the ah vowel, it's like like there's so many different versions of the ah, right? But the E is a lot easier for me to find the focus and the resonance of the sound. And I find that with my students as well. And the b is a very good, easy consonant to start it with and to kind of have that focus in that. And so some of the variations are the beep, 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 beep. Or you can do, this one's a little trickier, and sometimes people try to go too fast and then they lose their accuracy, or especially for younger kids or beginners, this one is not recommended until just a little bit later, just because it's harder to find the pitches, unless they're really awesome. But beady, 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 beady. So I love me a good beady bee. Okay, next, another one I love is the go, 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 go. And this one, I love it because it's descending. And so you're already working with the soft palate, dropping that or just kind of collapsing everything. And so it's really good to try to keep the dome and everything open when you're descending. And then also I like this one because it really helps with the jaw and the tongue. And so doing the go, 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 it's, but on a G, go, 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 go. And then I like to feel like instead of, because you're going to see the students want to go like, go, 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 all of that, where the jaw is just chomping. And then that's a good way to be like, okay, remember when you're chewing like that, you're just going to get tired. There's all sorts of tensions that can happen, bad habits. So it's really, the focus of this one is trying to keep the base of the tongue and everything relaxed and move the tongue go 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 instead of go 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 instead of the jaw. So that's a tricky one. And then also this one is good for laryngeal position. So if I feel like my student is having a really high larynx and like go 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 go, that kind of thing, I'll really say feel like it comes from down here, go 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 go, a little bit more of this type of thing where they're envisioning more of an open throat and more relaxed and less of that. Go, 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 go. 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 And then I'll usually come back down with that and descend back through. So I love the go, go, goes. And then the next one is the hee-haw. He's kind of like a donkey one, but a laughing donkey, I suppose. And so you can start with an ah vowel, ah, 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 or you can start with ee, ah, ah. I like to start with the E just to find the resonance, and then I stick my ah through that E vowel, which is helpful for the cut, but it's... So you do like 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then the whole goal is to kind of keep it moving. Of that one. I really like this one for movement. So especially with younger singers, if you're trying to find something that moves instead of just sustains a lot of long legato lines, which is wonderful and beautiful, but it can get in the way sometimes, especially students that hold or that squeeze. I like to find things that just keep moving, keep the breath moving, keep things light, keep things lighthearted. And a lot of times I'll talk about this one being very much like laughter. And so then that automatically kind of helps them get it into like a ha 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 place instead of like and sort of trying to drive the sound in that way. And also another one that's very similar to that is the ah ah ahs. And so you do 3 pulses and then you hold the third one and then you do a run. Now, I like to do these fast because I like to keep the breath moving, but you can also, if you're really working on something where there's some melismas in a song and it's a little bit slower, it's kind of at that level where you can't just completely let go because it's slow enough, but I think you know what I mean. And so that one can be helpful if you slow that one down, but I really like doing this one fast because it just kind of keeps things moving and keeping the air spinning and less tendency to hold or grab on something. And so the really good thing about this is that you work on the initial onset, because sometimes people will want to do the guada like or something where everything's kind of closed down and tight, and so then you can work on and you can work on the soft palate as well with that, and you can work on releasing the breath with each one. And then the cool thing about this one, now this one is more advanced, so I don't usually use this with my beginner students, and it can work a lot into the technique. But I love this one because you can ask them to do all sorts of different things on the held notes. You can ask them to just sustain it as steadily as possible until they go into the run. For example, something like that. Or you can be like, let's play around with this, and now we're gonna do Messa di Voce on incense. Or something like that. Or you could do a decrescendo. Something like that. So there's so many different things that you can do with that one. So I really like that one. And also you can play around with vowels. So if there's a vowel placement that is great for you, like E, then you can also do this on an E. Sometimes where I have a student that they have a pretty good amount of resonance in the mid-range, but then all of a sudden when they get to the top, they'll start to swallow like, whoa, that kind of thing. And then I work through with an E and figure out where exactly that place is. So those are the ones that I do for really developing more of the range and the head voice. However, there are a couple warm-ups that I really, really love that have to do with mixed voice and using the belt and mode 1. And so I just be careful about these. Know the student that you're working with and make sure that they're using a good technique, making sure that they're not like screaming or yelling when they're doing it. And so just use these ones with caution. But one that I really, really love is one of my go-tos is Cam Cat. And so you go Cam Cat, Cam Cat, Cam Cat, Cam Cat, Cam Cat, Cam Cat, and you take that right through the break into the stratosphere. That one is really helpful. And then another one that I really like is Hey Guys. Hey guys, hey guys, hey guys. And then going through the break as well with that one. So be careful about those, but those can be helpful too if you're using them correctly. So those are a lot of my favorite warm-ups. I hope you enjoyed them. And please know that it's not a one-trick pony. So maybe not all of these warm-ups would work well for you, or maybe there's some that you're like, yeah, I really don't like that. That's not for me, which is fine. I just wanted to share with you the ones that I really like and really enjoy. They're my staples. However, I love to learn new warm-ups and why you like them. So please share those with me, or share them in the comments, or share with me what your favorite warm-ups are. Thank you so much.